So, with my latest video on Scott Pilgrim taking longer than expected,
Oh my god, this is an existential nightmare.
I decided to make a quick video talking about the things I've been watching during the quarantine. I do need to let you guys know these are things that aren't always current. There's going to be some older stuff. To be completely honest, most of it will be old stuff because 2020 for media has been rough, but life is good, right? So, part 1, TV. Before I started writing video essays and analysis videos, I never really watched a lot of TV. But with my stay inside lifestyle, Netflix, Hulu, and other streaming services I use have been my best friend, and with that an infinite amount of shows and movies to watch, I dived right into. So, first on the list is a show I've enjoyed during this hard time, which is Riverdale. So, if I'm being completely honest, when this first came out, I was extremely conflicted about the show. You see, I grew up waking up early in the morning watching the bizarre Canadian TV show called Archie's Weird Mysteries. So, when I heard the CW was going to make this into an edgy, teen, neo-noir crime drama, I guess I wasn't surprised. I mean, I see a lot of people had a ton of reviews and video essays about how at its core, it's not the Archie comics. But when I watched it, I also remember that in the past years before Riverdale came out, Archie fought the Predator, Sabrina had some chilling adventures before her TV show debut, and there was a post-apocalyptic version where the gang became zombies. So I wasn't really bothered by this change, because to me, this is just an alternate version of the Archie comics, and it's not good TV, of course. This series is trashy fun that I can just shut my mind off to, and when batshit crazy things happen, I can just go, what the fuck, that is so stupid, from cliffhanger to cliffhanger. But there's something about this show I just find enjoyable at the same time. This show goes buck wild, from musical episodes centered around Broadway hits like Heathers and Hedwig and the Angry Itch, to having subplots that involve cult-like behavior because of a Dungeons & Dragons-like game / a murder mystery that tracks 2 decades ago. Honestly, if I could explain Riverdale to anyone, I would just call it small-town fanfiction. What I mean by that is that it's just small-town drama cranked up to over 9,000. We are going down the CW train as I caught up on the complete series of iZombie. I picked up the iZombie comics when I was in high school after hearing a podcaster talk with one of the creators, Chris Roberson, talking about it. And from what I got, there were going to be zombies, werewolves, and vampires trying to live life. So when I heard it was getting a CW release, I wasn't very hopeful, because what we got was a police crime drama about a zombie girl who eats brains to take on the personality of the person she just ate. So this show is just iZombie by name only, which, yeah, that kind of sucks, but also being human exists twice. So if you're really wanting the same vibe from the comics, check that show out. Or shows. I think that's what I mean. To me, when I watched iZombie, it had the same effect Riverdale did for me. It's just dumb fun. They use comic book panels in weird ways, the intro is really, really cool, and it's a fun opening, and I love that song. I really have to praise the main actress who plays Liv Moore, Rose McIver, because she essentially has to play multiple people. As a person who ingests brains and assumes the dead's personality, it's very charming. But my 2 favorite characters are Ravi, played by Rahul Kohli, and Blaine, played by David Anders. Ravi is the fun, comical, sarcastic relief, and Blaine being this charming rogue who only has interest for himself. iZombie is a fun romp that's like a B-movie mixed with every police procedural I've ever seen. They say there's art in tragedy, and the TV show Hannibal is just all about that. Being based on the book series and successful movie franchise starring Anthony Hopkins, Hannibal centers around FBI agent Will Graham delving deep into the minds of serial killers trying to solve grisly murders while also trying not to fall too deep into the madness, with the help of the title character Hannibal Lecter being his therapist to help him control his unstable mind state. But Dr. Lecter is keeping a deep secret, and that is he himself is a prolific serial killer and cannibal. Hannibal has a way of making grotesque scenes look so goddamn beautiful. From the macabre and artistic murder scenes, that even though they're using dead bodies, they have a way of making them look aesthetically pleasing. To the cooking scenes where, Lecter is using human body parts, but is able to make it look so goddamn edible. Hannibal is such a wonderful psychological thriller. I love the performance of Mads Mikkelsen playing the iconic Hannibal Lecter. He brings sort of a sexy charm while also playing off a cold serial killer. I would go more into this series, but I don't want to spoil it. While writing this video essay, I've come to the realization when I'm not writing about kung fu films or films from 10 years ago, I spend a lot of my time watching a shit ton of police procedurals, and the one that I have enjoyed the most is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. During times that are hard and stressful, Brooklyn Nine-Nine allows me just to shut my mind off and have a good time. The thing that makes this comedy so charming, at least to me, is not the police stuff, but the hijinks the characters get into. The chemistry of all the actors feels less like people forced to work in a workplace together, but more like they're friends hanging out doing dumb things. Being a sitcom, there's also actually growth to these characters. From Jake and Amy falling in love and eventually having a child, to the hijinks of every single Halloween contest that goes to all different places. But not only do they have irreverent stories, but the way the show is played out, there are actual story arcs that span seasons. But where the show truly shines is how they handle certain issues. Two issues in particular I can think about that seemed relevant was Brooklyn Nine-Nine isn't afraid to talk about LGBTQ issues and handles all these types of characters very well and with care. My favorite being Rosa coming out to her parents about being bisexual. It was both heartfelt and hard to watch. Seeing this character who isn't really vulnerable have to open up to her strongly ignorant parents, it's not all resolved all at once, and it takes time for them to grow and accept it. The second issue being what Terry has to do when he's confronted as just an African American man and not a cop when another cop racially profiles him, and the struggles and questions that the characters all have that are going through about the whole scenario, from whether or not Terry should speak up about what happened or let it be. The other characters trying to tell his daughters why their dad got arrested, and whether or not to answer does their color of their skin have an effect on what will happen to them in their lives. And with stuff happening right now with the Black Lives Matter movement, it really kind of hit home. Part 2. Cartoons. The Last Airbender is one of the best palate cleansers after having to rewatch that awful live-action movie for a retrospective. But there is something fun and nostalgic rewatching this entire series, revisiting the vast lore and the mythology of this world. I fell in love all over again, from the opening of the series that shows all the styles of bending. It might be because I'm looking through nostalgia goggles with the show, but it is a great children's TV show. I love this story a lot, because like the title of each of the seasons, each of them are books of adventures that these characters are going through, feeling like a modern Odyssey similar to the Journey of the West, where the characters go on adventures, opening up the world to us. The story is simple, but has a lot of emotion and drive, because everywhere Team Avatar goes, they help and shape the future of the four nations. The one thing that stays the same is the characters being extremely relatable, with my two favorite characters still being Uncle Iroh and Sokka. If you remember me talking about how One Piece premiered on the television network The Fox Box, then you will remember another show that was airing around the same time, the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle series. When I think about what made me love the TMNT, it would be the 90s edgy movie that swears a lot, and this animated TV series that made it a little bit more dark and edgy, well, at least for the first couple of seasons. We just don't talk about TMNT Back to the Sewers and fast forward, okay? This series is a fun rewatch, from the intro rock song to all the cool designs of the characters, but what really got me was the fact of how different it was from the movies I watched as a kid. They weren't just fighting street gangs and ninjas, but they were going to outer space fighting humanoid triceratops and time traveling to different dimensions to fight in a martial arts tournament against dragon men and a samurai bunny. This is the second best TMNT series, being beaten out by the 2012 TMNT reboot. But now, let's talk about some French animation and talk about the Netflix original series, Whack Fu. Based on the tactics MMORPG of the same name, This is an Avatar-like adventure that spans across a unique world. The story of Wakfu is your stereotypical JRPG plot of stopping evil bad guy from destroying the world with your typical classes. You've got like a mage, a warrior, a ranger, and some other oddballs. But the villain isn't just your generic villain, he has a sense of depth to him. Yeah, sure, all the main characters are filling in archetypes, but they're also very charming and individual on their own. And everyone in this world, although looking similar, all look unique, from the races having different body types and appearances. The one thing I can talk about in this show is how awesome this animation is, because this series was all animated using Flash. And there are just some badass scenes that push Flash animation to the limits, and they even have fight scenes that are as impressive as some animes do. When you hear the name Genndy Tartakovsky, the first thing that would come to mind is Samurai Jack, which was a staple of my childhood, and then you think about his newest Adult Swim series, Primal. But what if I told you he made a series in between those two that came out a decade ago? Well, he did, and that series is Symbiotic Titan. The show is like if you mixed Voltron, a John Hughes film, and X-Files, and set it in a modern time. I find the story to be both interesting and compelling. Where Samurai Jack is a fun action comedy with occasional sympathetic moments, and Primal having just gut-wrenching sadness with some lightheartedness, I consider this show to be a happy medium of the two, mixing teen melodrama spliced between a little bit of political intrigue, badass giant monster fights, and just mysteries galore. I love all the designs of the characters and the monsters. I love the subtle hints and homages to 80s mecha animes like Voltron and Robotech as well, but sadly the series ended in a cliffhanger that would just never be resolved. Part 3. Movies. With the current climate, there's no way I'm traveling whatsoever unless it's to the store. So I use movies to go on my own globe-trotting adventures. Actually, honestly, I think I only have one movie that made me feel like I was visiting a foreign city. Everything else was just mindless dumb fun, or just super Japanese. And the first film I want to talk about is Midnight in Paris. Midnight in Paris is written and directed by Woody Allen. It stars Owen Wilson playing Woody Allen's insert character Gil Pender, traveling around Paris. But the twist is he isn't just traveling around modern day Paris, but he's also traveling Paris during its art and creative renaissance during the 1920s, where he's encountering famous writers and artists ranging from Zelda and F. Scott Fitzgerald to Pablo Picasso. Woody Allen took inspiration from the Ernest Hemingway book A Movable Feast. It's a book where Hemingway spent the 1920s spending time with a lot of the people that you encounter during this movie. I find the intro shots of Paris to be very soothing just to watch, and all the shots of Paris from the past and present are beautiful as well. And all the characters playing historical figures such as Tom Hiddleston and Alison Pill playing the Fitzgerald, as well as Kathy Bates playing Gertrude Stein, who may not look like the characters they are portraying, but their energy gives off the feel of the historic figure. One of my favorite actors is Corey Stoll playing Ernest Hemingway, and giving an intense monologue in the back of a car that still just gives me chills. What I love about this film is that it comes off feeling like a film written by a guy who loves the old nostalgic times and wishes he could be there when this greatness was happening. It romanticizes Paris and why the city is amazing. But then it turns the tables on you, giving you a story of how the mundane and the exciting exists in both the past and the present. And if you keep looking back at all the great times of the old and focus on just the mundane of the now, you're going to miss out on the possible great and exciting moments of the here and now. That it's good to look back, but also you need to move on for more adventures. If you can tell from a lot of my videos, I love action movies. I also complain a lot about how lazy American action scenes can be. But I have a ton of guilty pleasure bad movies, and some of them are entire series. And one of these series is called the Underworld series. It's like an Anne Rice fanfiction blended with an Evanescence soundtrack mixed with guns and slow motion, and then boom, you do have the Underworld series. These movies are insanely dumb, and at the same time, I think it is what made these films so charming and entertaining. You can tell after the first one, they had no fucking clue where they were gonna go, and if they were even gonna land a sequel. This is because in the first film, the term lichen and werewolves were interchangeable, and then they tried to say they were different in the later films. But unfortunately, every sequel became less fun and charming as I watched. Like, the last two, Awakening and Blood Wars, are the most lackluster, while I think the first three films are fun action slogs. Dumb plot lines aside, I love the action scenes. The fights are of its time, that early 2000s gun fu and slow motion mixed with alternative rock music playing in the background. I think the thing I always love about these films are the use of practical effects, from limbs and body parts being ripped, sliced, and splattered. Like, yeah, the transformation effects in the first three films are a little bit fun and goofy looking in modern standards, but where the effects shine is the transformation scenes, making them feel and look uncomfortable through the visual change from body distortion, and that is something I can respect about this series. So, like, contrary to my TV list, I'm not a big fan of police procedural dramas such as Law & Order or CSI, because I find them to be boring and inaccurate. But, on the other hand, I love the Ace Attorney series, which is a visual novel that makes you think, and is also a police procedural drama that is inaccurate but extremely enjoyable. So what do you do if you don't think you can sit 30 plus hours on an anime reading video game, but want to experience it? Well, do I have a film for you. The live-action Ace Attorney film is buck wild, and why wouldn't it be? I mean, it is directed by the legendary Japanese director Takeshi Miike, who is famous for films like Full Metal Yakuza, Blade of the Immortal, and the live-action JoJo's film. So this man knows how to direct weird. Without sounding hyperbolic, to me, this is the best adaptation of a video game to film, because it takes the core of what makes that series great, which is the characters and the melodrama between them. They understood that they couldn't do a complete retelling of a 30 plus hour game, but they take the important parts of the first game and build a story around that. What makes it such a fun film is the court cases themselves. So, this is set in a dystopian future where court cases are watched by crowds as a form of entertainment. So, they have a Minority Report style machine that scans evidence and shows the evidence to the crowd, and virtual screens that can be moved around and even be thrown like key blasts. Henceforth, you get your stereotypical what the objections would look like in real life. Not only do they get the feel and story right of Ace Attorney, they're able to remix some of the songs from the original game with subtle changes to them. They're even able to make the weird hairstyles make sense, and all the characters actually look and feel like the characters. Maybe besides the actor who plays Dick Gumshoe, but that's only because I pictured him a bit older. But the actors playing Phoenix Wright and Miles Edgeworth, Hiroki Normio, and Takumi Sato play the characters like you would imagine them to be, Phoenix Wright being the nervous wreck and Edgeworth being cold and calculated. I highly recommend watching this film if you are a fan of Takeshi Miike or the Ace Attorney series. Part 4. Animes. I'm going to be talking about a few of the animes that have got me hooked, and the first being The God of High School. Based on the Korean manhwa of the same name, this anime seems to be just a giant long tournament arc, and that already had me sold. But the story is centered around three main characters, not Goku, Mori Jin, a martial artist specializing in Taekwondo, Daiwai, a karate practitioner, and the master swordsman Mira Yu. Battle it out in the God of High School fighting tournament to have their different wishes fulfilled. If I could explain the God of High School, I would say this. Picture this, if you were to combine Dragon Ball Z and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, blend it all together with just a hint of a fighting tournament arc, then crank that shit up to 11, and then, my friends, you have the God of High School. It is a high-octane fights that sell you on how powerful the impacts are. Unique character designs that don't look or feel like any other anime. I love this series so much, I started reading the manhwa. If anyone remembers the old days of anime watching, you probably remember Soul Eater. It gave a horror gothic aesthetic mixed with a fun anime trope. Well, the creator of that made another manga called Fire Force that got turned into an anime. The story is centered around a young fire soldier, Shinra, trying to find his brother while also stopping a fire cult from collecting these pillars. Oh, and the Fire Force have to kill people who randomly burst into flames and turn into giant fire monsters. I love the world of Fire Force, it's fun and unique. The world is really unique because it's a mix of gothic horror and steampunk aesthetics, as well as a weird church vibe. All the different fire forces are different kind of battalions ranging from priests to just doctors. The White Knights also have this cool motif because they're really just a cult. And my favorite character design comes from Maki for reasons. The studio that animates this is David Productions, who are famous for animating JoJo's Part 1 through 5, and you can tell all the action is fun and explosive. And it really blows you away about how each person can use fire in different ways, from using it to fire weapons to control the trajectory, and my waifu Witch Girl being able to make semi-living fireballs. Each one of them is so unique. Shinra's pyromancy is to use his feet, so he has to use like a breakdance type of fighting, and it's fun to watch. I enjoy the first season, and this is one of the 3 of the other summer anime I'm following because I had a lot of fun still with it. My first video I made was on Food Wars. I was going through a hard time when I made it, and the pandemic really didn't help. So Food Wars was the thing that got me out of my rut and allowed me to keep moving forward in a weird way. So when I posted the video, the final season should have been going on, but thanks a lot COVID for messing that up. But I did get a chance to see all the new dub episodes of Season 3, and as of now Season 5 is going on, and I can say I still have quite a lot of fun with it. I never thought I would ever like Food Wars, but it really ended up hitting me hard for some reason. Without this anime, I would never have started even making videos. And even with that video essay, I didn't think I did that series justice. I never got to really talk about what makes the series so fun. I find it fun because it is a true essence of what classic shonen was. A boy who only cares about one thing, and that's just to keep getting stronger. Through cooking, and it may not be Karate Blast, but the core of classic shonen is still there. I think Food Wars is more than a beautiful mess. I think that it's a love letter to shonen in some ways. You realize that the author was heavily inspired by series that came before it, such as Toriko, Dragon Ball Z, and One Piece. I love how they show off the food. It's both artistic and makes you hungry at the same time. And I always love how lighthearted it is. Like sure, there's random hentai looking scenes, but under that, there's a heart and intimacy to the food tasting scenes. I might be getting sentimental with this series because in a way, it helped me become the person I am today. The person making this video. I guess I don't know how to segue, so those were a few of the anime, cartoons, film, and TV I enjoyed during the pandemic. I wanted to get a quick video out of the way while I'm working on my Scott Pilgrim one. I hope it will be out in a few weeks. I highly recommend watching these shows because they're entertaining and extremely fun. Some of these may not be perfect, but they help me through the mundane and honestly, just a little depressing life of the pandemic. Hey guys, thanks for watching my new video. If you want to help support me, you can subscribe to my Patreon, but a simple like, subscribe, and share helps. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you can get all the latest notifications. Plus, don't forget to check out The Tangent. It's a podcast I host where it's just me and my friends, just being a bunch of goops. Friends, once again, keep on keeping on, and always stay awesome.